Hi, my name is Francois Nordia, and I am a super teacher. And this is Super Teachers Unite, the show that's all about motivating, inspiring, and supporting teachers. And on this very cold Johannesburg morning, I've got with me Darren August. Darren, thank you for joining me.
Hey, Francois, I'm so excited to be with you on today's episode. I've been a big fan, and so it's really special that I can get to be with you today. Thank you.
It's cool. We're going to be fanboying because I'm a major fan of the work that you do as well. So we're going to have a great chat this morning. But before we do that, just to let you know that this episode is brought to you by WillTracker, WILTracker.com. If you are a student teacher or if you are a teacher looking to mentor student teachers, this platform is all for you. We bring together student teachers, mentor teachers, and university lecturers so that we can do the best possible mentoring of our student teachers, because we know that the journey towards becoming a super teacher starts while you're a student. So WillTracker.com, go check it out. It's great to see the education ecosystem working together on a platform like that. So thank you so much to World Tracker. And then, of course, everybody who's watching this or listening to this, if you'd like to be part of our live studio audience when we record the Super Teachers Unite show, just send me a WhatsApp. We've got this Super Teacher hotline. Whenever you've got any issues within education, you're welcome to just pop me a message on WhatsApp. But this is also the same place where I share out the invites to the episodes like this, where you can interact with our guests, but also when we do professional development, any other workshops, we send through the information using our WhatsApp service. So if you'd like to be part of that, just send your name through to +27 63 681 6410. I'm just going to repeat that. It's +27 63 681 6410. Now that all of the housekeeping is out of the way, for our guests who are joining us live, I would like you to please go and vote in the polls. If you're watching this on Facebook Live as well, it would be great if you can head on over to the Crowdcast platform. There is a link in the description. But if you come over to our Crowdcast platform, you can participate in what we call the Design a Lesson Challenge. We've been doing this with a few of our guests. Darren is ready to assist me in designing an impromptu lesson. We've got zero idea of what's going to happen. In our poll section, there are two questions. The one question is you can choose the subjects that we have to integrate, because we don't just want to design a lesson in one subject. We want to design a lesson throughout the multiple subjects. So please go and vote in the polls which subject you would like us to include. And then you'll see the phase of schooling, because we need a little bit of scope. Where are we going to pitch our lesson? Is it for the foundation phase, intermediate phase, senior phase, or FET? So if you can go and vote in the polls, that would be great. We're going to use that information at the end of the show today, and Darren and I, along with the live studio audience, we are going to design a lesson, and I'm very excited for that. But ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to our guest, Darren August. Darren, I got to know you a little bit back in, I want to say 2014, 2015, when I saw your Teacher Changed My Life talk that you came and presented at the University of Johannesburg, one of our first year camps. I was a lecturer there. You presented the talk, and I got to know you a little bit through that talk in what you said there. But you've got a book, a best-selling book called "A Teacher Changed My Life," and you also arranged I want to get this right, so let me definitely read this. You are the founder of the National Inspirational Teacher Tour, and now currently you're assisting people in general writing their own books. That's quite a mouthful.
It is. But I think I'm really just so passionate about dreams and really helping people achieve their dreams. And so for me, everything I do is really just an extension of who I am. And my personal statement, my personal purpose statement is to just keep dreaming and inspire others to dream. And so really everything I do is connected to that. But my book, A Teacher Changed My Life, really was the springboard for so much of the work that I do today.
Yeah, and tell us about the book. Why did you decide to write the book?
So it was always on my personal goal list to write a book one day. I didn't know what book I would write. And then I'm not sure if you recall, but I think it was actually 2014. There was an incident where a learner was beating up a teacher with a broom in a classroom, and the rest of the class were filming that incident, and that video clip went viral. Now, back then, we weren't used to seeing so many of these situations on an almost a daily basis. But when that particular instance happened, it literally went viral and the whole world saw it. And so shortly after that, the Department of Education called for a conference or a summit on how do we bring back discipline in schools. And at that time, I had a really burning desire to work with learners in schools. And so I literally called up the Department of Education and said, can I come to this conference? And they were like, who are you? Are you even a teacher? Are you a principal? And the answer was no, because I'm not. And I eventually got a reply saying I can come to this conference. And when I got there, somebody was on stage talking about a topic obviously related to discipline or something like that. But while I was sitting there, I almost zoned out completely. And I got this idea that the teaching profession is such a powerful one, where somebody gets to be in front of a classroom full of a captive audience for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I thought, what if we had people in the classroom who really just understood the power of this profession? And right then I had flashbacks of my life and how teachers impacted my life throughout my school career. I sat in that conference, Francois, and I mind mapped my entire book. I knew the title, I knew the concept, and I knew the movement that it would spark after that. And so after that, I had to go home and ask my wife for permission to write a book for 6 months, because she was like, how are you who's going to pay for this? How's this going to become a business? But I've never, ever looked back.
That's absolutely amazing. And I remember that viral video. It was also just as I started my university lecturing career. I've been teaching for 8 years prior to that, and then moved into university teaching. And that was one of the first incidents that I could mention in class while working with pre-service teachers. And I remember that video very, very vividly. And I really think that teacher was an absolute super teacher, because they did not retaliate whatsoever. They stood there in silence. The child left the classroom. There was, I think, somebody threw a chair. It was shocking what happened, and that teacher had that restraint to not act in a, I'm also saying, a violent or malicious manner. And just that really blew me away. Just the way in which that teacher approached that situation.
Definitely. And I think so my desire with writing the book and even with founding the Inspirational Teacher Tour was really to celebrate the teaching profession. A situation like that happens, and it's so easy for people to point fingers. It's so easy for people to say, yeah, but you're a teacher, you're supposed to behave this way. But that was actually, like you say, it was a phenomenal reaction from somebody who was able to control themselves, show restraint. And so really the heartbeat of everything I try to do is to elevate the teaching profession to the place where it's called the noble profession again. Back when I was a child, teachers were the most respected people in the community. We looked up to teachers. Everybody wanted to be like our teachers. And these days, that's not the case anymore, because it is really the hardest profession to be in. And so I'm really just trying to do my bit to become what I call a friend of the profession, where if more of us in society who have been impacted by teachers are able to really, really celebrate and just let people know how valuable our teachers are, I think we can see the return of this profession being elevated again and getting to the place where people respect and value teachers for the national assets that we say they are.
Darren, why do you think people in general don't value the profession of teaching? Why? Because I get the sense that people are looking down on the profession of teaching. Why do you think that's the case?
I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think right now there's just so much pressure on teachers. I think there's a lot of pressure on teachers to perform. There's a lot of pressure on them to maintain all of the standards. Plus, there's a lot of admin that they need to do. And the teaching environment right now is just becoming so much more difficult because of how society is moving. I mean, the violence that we see in schools, since corporal punishment was removed, it almost felt as if power was taken away from teachers to instill discipline. So there's a whole lot of things. There's pressure from government, there's pressure from parents, there's learners who are battling with their own issues. And so it's just a constant flooding of emotions and expectations. And so I think that's a big part of the reason why the profession is not seen and not respected as much as it should be. because we are seeing, I mean, and if we're honest, we see a couple of teachers who do drop the ball, and I think these days it's so easy for media to blow up those situations. And so when a teacher slaps a learner, we see that, and there's a big uproar, and there's a huge outcry. But when a teacher buys a learner a plate of food, nobody talks about that. When a teacher takes in a learner and helps them study for their matric exams and fills in their bursary application form, and they go on to university and become a graduate, nobody talks about that. We'd much rather talk about the bad instead of celebrating the good. And that's part of the reason why I believe the profession is not getting the recognition that it deserves.
And I think that's why the two of our missions, my mission and your mission, is so well aligned, because it's exactly that. I don't think teaching has got a teacher problem. I think we've got a PR problem. The communication that's being sent out and what mainstream media is discussing about teaching is really detrimental to the teaching profession, and it really saddens me. And that's why I started the Super Teacher movement, and that's why I absolutely love your message about a teacher change your life, and that I love the hoodie that you're wearing. Teachers' lives matter. I think that's extremely important messages that we have to send out, because if we don't start proclaiming or advertising, if you wish, the positive things that are happening in education, then the bad players, I call them the mediocre teachers, and I almost want to say our villain teachers, their messages are getting spread by mainstream media without any real effort. But positivity matters. We have to keep on telling the stories of the positivity that's happening in education. Do you agree with that? Do you think we've got a PR problem in education? It seems like we've lost some connection there. I don't know whether it's on my side or on Darren's side, but Darren will be reconnecting soon. While we wait for Darren, I'll repeat the question as soon as he comes back in. Remember, everybody, please keep on voting in our polls at the bottom. If you are with us live on Crowdcast, just join us there, and please vote for the Design a Lesson challenge that you'd like to us to do at the end, which subjects and which phase you'd like us to incorporate there. We'll pick up Darren very soon again, I'm sure. Let's just check on WhatsApp. He'll message me if there's something wrong on his side. But while we're waiting, just once again, thank you to our sponsor, worldtracker.com. Please make sure that you head on over to worldtracker.com if you'd like to be a student teacher, connected with a mentor teacher, or if you are a mentor teacher looking for a student teacher to mentor, you can do that on worldtracker.com. I see Darren just WhatsApp me. Let me just quickly see if I can invite him back onto stage. There's definitely been a challenge inviting him back on stage. Darren, you can probably hear me because you are in the room. I'm just inviting you back on stage. He's accepted. Okay, we'll be back with Darren very soon. There we go. And you're back.
Great. So I think I sort of heard the last part you were talking about. Do we have a PR problem in the teaching profession? And I was saying that I definitely agree, and I echo those sentiments. That's part of the reason why I started the campaign called Teachers' Lives Matter. And this was shortly after we had a teacher who was murdered by a learner. And I thought that it's not up to government anymore. It's not up to teachers to elevate this profession. It's up to every single one of us. It's up to society, and because every one of us have been impacted by a teacher. We all have been to school. School is compulsory, and so chances are that all of us have encountered a great teacher. And so it's so important for us to become those friends of the profession and really, really elevate and stand for this profession.
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult subject to talk about, especially in the current international environment. I mean, if you at this stage try and say anything else than Black Lives Matter, then people start screaming at you, like, how dare you not be part of this? I mean, I'm not saying for one moment that people that are saying, like all lives matter, that of course is important. Everybody's lives matter. I heard a very important thing or analogy earlier this week. We can say that, like every house matters. We all live in a house, all the houses matter. but can we please pay attention to the house that's currently on fire? Because that
Mm,
house matters. Can we
yeah.
please have a look at that and start focusing our attention on the house that's on fire and try and get that fire and stop that fire. And I remember when you started the Teachers Lives Matter campaign, it was directly after the murder of one of our teachers. So I commend you for that, and I agree. If we, as I said, all these negative images are portrayed on mainstream media, but you also said we don't get to hear enough of the great things that are happening in education. Maybe tell us a bit more about this Teachers Lives Matter thing, and how was it received by the teaching community?
So a couple of things I did. Firstly, I launched the T-shirt campaign, and I invited people to wear it on a Friday, really just because Fridays are sometimes a bit of a more casual day. But it was really my way of just standing and really showing a message saying it's not okay to disrespect our teachers. I think it was really well received. I think at some point I saw on the news on national television, the CEO of SAFE was wearing this T-shirt for one of her interviews. For me, it literally, every time I speak now, since I launched this campaign, this is what I wear. So I literally, I'll wear this with a suit, I'll wear it with jeans, but I don't wear anything else besides this T-shirt every time I get in front of an audience that has anything to do with education. And so something really important that it's a quote that I heard. It says, in hard times, we don't remember the words of our enemies. We remember the silence of our friends. And that really, really sparked a chord with me. It's something that I mentioned it in my TED talk as well, where it's so important for us. And I really believe all of us can become those friends that don't keep silent. So that's really the heartbeat of what I'm trying to do with this particular campaign.
Okay, first of all, where do I get my T-shirt?
Connect with me on social media, and we'll hook you up when we do our next print run, because we've actually sold out of them. But
okay, excellent. Because I'm dead sure there's a lot of super teachers out there who already have their super teacher T-shirt that definitely want the Teachers Lives Matter T-shirt. So do they just connect with you on Facebook to get hold of?
That's the best way, yeah. I think you and I should do a swap, because I'm really liking that yellow on yours.
Oh, for sure. That'll definitely happen. If we can keep on plugging, my hoodies will be out very soon as the print runs as well. And I think that's the thing about this. If we can quickly talk about like messages like this, and you just mentioned it, that you would wear a shirt like that because it's a clear message we are portraying whenever you interact with the education community. I do exactly the same with this shirt. And as you said, wear a blazer, we still look professional, but we've got a clear message that we'd like to send. And I absolutely love that idea. It's not the I almost want to say the 1990s anymore, where teachers rock up to school with ties and blazers. And, I know that if I go and do professional development workshops at a school, if I were to do that early 2000s, then they would expect of me to be this absolute professional or have this professional appearance. But these days I rock up with my jeans, with this shirt, with a blazer on, because people connect with the idea. And I think the entrepreneurial world, the Steve Jobs and the Gary Vaynerchuks and these people have really made it more acceptable for us to not look at the appearance of the person in front of us, but listen to the message.
Very true, very true. And I think it's a creative way teachers can consider sending messages to their learners. Imagine if teachers rocked up in a T-shirt that says, "I'm here because I love you," and you're standing up in front of a classroom all day, and this is what they're looking at. I think that might just affect how they respect you and how they receive you. Imagine if you wore a T-shirt saying there's greatness inside of you. So it's a really creative and a great way to affect the messaging that you put out there, because sometimes saying it doesn't land the message as well as when somebody actually sees you living it by wearing the T-shirt.
and it's all part of the semiotics. It's the symbols that we use in society that's going to bring about change. If you look at a teacher's classroom, the type of posters they put up shouldn't only be content driven, but there could be a socio-emotional learning aspect to it. There could be something deeper to the messaging that we portray. And T-shirts, and now of course face masks and face shields are definite things that people can start using to portray certain messages.
Yeah, Francois, so in my book, the main theme of my book is really about defining moments and how teachers have the ability to create those defining moments in the classroom. I speak about in grade 2, where a teacher gave me 13 out of 10 for recitation, and that was literally for saying a little poem. But when my parents questioned her about that, she said, "I'm giving this child 13 out of 10 because he has an above average ability to speak in public. And I believe it's just practice for public speaking later on." That was literally my destiny defined in a classroom. And so I believe that a lot of what goes into school and the school experience every single day is about creating those defining moments. And learners don't leave school remembering what you taught them. They don't remember the theory. They literally remember how you made them feel. They remember that you were the one teacher who said to them they can be a little bit more. They remember that you were the one teacher who was prepared to sit them down and say, don't even experiment with drugs because it's going to ruin your life. And so I feel like that's the where we're heading. I believe we're heading for a time where school may just become the only place where you can still influence society, simply because of the fact that you've got this captive audience all the time. And so it's more important now, more than ever, for teachers to be bringing their A game every day, being at the top of their game, and being present in the moment to be able to create those defining moments, so that you're able to make those little impactful moments when there is that teachable moment, really got to do with life, not just about all of the theory and all of the content you need to get through, but are we really building better people? Are we really building a better society? When they leave school, do they walk out of there knowing that they can change the world, knowing that they can achieve whatever they set their mind to? Or do they leave school thinking, oh, thank goodness I don't have to see Mr. Nadia again?
Yeah. No, and I think I always say there's 3 types of teachers. Those are, number one, the teachers that you'll never remember. They just were at school, but there's no memories of them. There's absolutely nothing you can remember about them. You struggle even to picture their faces. Then you have those teachers that you'll remember for the rest of your life because of the way in which they made you feel, because you were absolutely terrified of that individual, of that person. And you're going to tell your grandchildren about how bad that teacher was. And then, of course, you get the super teacher. You get the teacher that you remember because of the impact they made in your life. And that's why I absolutely love your message of a teacher changed your life, that if you were on a specific trajectory, just that defining moment that you spoke about now can really alter a person's future. Given that's something I wanted to ask you. Were you always thinking of going the public speaking route of authoring, or what was your dreams of when you were a kid? What's the type of job you thought you were going to do?
I think when I was a child, I didn't really know what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. Probably only when I got to high school, I think then I started thinking, okay, I'd love to be a speaker one day. I'd love to be on stage. But I think what's more important is the fact that my teachers actually saw so much more than what I knew. I mean, I speak about the fact that my my high school Afrikaans teacher, so she was my Afrikaans teacher from about grade 9 all the way to matric. And she always used to say to me, Liefie, jy moet 'n onderwyser word. And I used to say, nooit, mevrou, nooit, nooit. And when I look at what I do now, I literally am a teacher. I'm a teacher in the corporate space as a trainer and a facilitator. I'm a teacher as a speaker. I now teach people how to write and publish their own books. And everything I do is because of this teaching gift that was identified by somebody who could see further than what I could see. It was one of the biggest achievements for me to now publish that teacher's book. She came to me and I was like, look at how the wheel has turned, where this student has now become a teacher, and I was able to now coach my teacher on the entire process of how do you go about writing and publishing and marketing your own book. It was absolutely phenomenal to just go through that experience.
That's definitely something we need to talk about, because I firmly believe that every teacher has got a book in them. There's so many amazing things that happen throughout your career as a teacher that I believe every single teacher should communicate that. And one way of doing that is in writing a book. So Darren, you self-published your book, am I correct?
That's correct, yes.
Now, how do you even start in publishing your own book?
I think it starts with the desire. So that's the first step. You have to have a desire to want to write a book, and then you need to be able to craft a great book, because not every book sells, not every book does well. And so I really believe a great book doesn't just happen, it's engineered. And so you engineer it by getting complete clarity on what is your message, what is the message of your book, who your target market is, and what it is that you're trying to get across. So there's a couple of really, really great elements in a great book. For instance, when somebody reads your book, they need to feel like it was written for them. So I've had so many people say to me, Darren, when I read your book, I feel like you're telling my story. And by doing that, it means that I've included that special ingredient, which I call the Me Too effect, where somebody is able to make that connection. And so, yes, although it's my story, you are able to learn from it. And so that's how I've engineered this book to be such a great tool that gets people to really buy into my message, buy into the movement, and as a result, I'm able to scale up, and it's able to be a profitable book as well. So yeah, but I definitely believe teachers have got so much wisdom. Teachers have got so much that they can impart. Just the other day, I saw a post of a teacher who's been teaching for 48 years. I mean, that is phenomenal, you know. And do you want to tell me that in 48 years of teaching, you don't have experiences that you could share with somebody who's just entering the profession, or with somebody who's battling to raise their children at home? So teachers really have got hands-on experiences, and there's so much that happens in a classroom on a daily basis that can help impart life lessons and wisdom to other people. And so I definitely believe teachers are the best candidates to be writing books.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you've got 48 years of experience, there's stuff that happened back now. I'm going to try and do my math. Back in the 80s, when you taught, it's different than something that happened in the 90s. Or maybe you were teaching during 94 when we moved to freedom. Imagine what the classroom experience could be like. So there's even just a book around teaching during 94. There could be if you think about the current situation, there could be so many books written about how I approached remote teaching.
Very true. Very true. You know, I was invited to an event probably about 2 years ago at the Nelson Mandela Foundation. And part of the entry fee, or the requirement for everybody that was on the guest list, was that you had to bring a book to donate to a school library. And people walked in and everybody was dropping their books. And when I walked in, I had a copy of my book, and I had a copy of my children's book as well. And as I walked to the box, literally all me, and they were like, "What is that book?" And I said, "It's my own books that I've written." And they went absolutely crazy. And I looked in the box, and all I saw were leadership books by John Maxwell and personal development books by overseas authors, and my heart broke. And I thought, are you saying to me that there is not a South African who can become an expert in the field of leadership? Is there not a South African who can become an expert in the field of teaching children with special needs? Is there not a teacher who could write a book about how to, you know, whatever it is? I feel like there are South African solutions to South African problems, and we need to be writing those books. I think we can't always be looking to other countries for solutions to our problems, when inside of us there is just so much gold and so much that we can offer to the world as well.
Absolutely. And it's almost like those leadership books are saturated. I mean, people have been writing about leadership. People have been writing about politics. People have written about entrepreneurship. Yet, every single day, almost every single year, we're seeing still a plethora of these books still entering the market. And I think that the answer for that is because they're telling their own unique stories. Once you try and copy somebody else's story, then you lose the authenticity, because you as the author, you as the storyteller have got so much to contribute. So what if there are 1,000 books on teaching? Your book hasn't been written yet.
That's right. That's right. And there's something that you could say differently that somebody else is not saying. You know, I think the one way you become an expert is simply by saying, everybody's saying this, but I'm saying this. As soon as you say that, you get everybody's attention, you know? And so I really believe that there's something unique about your personal experience. There's something unique about your journey. And every single one of us has something unique that we can offer this world.
Yeah. And I think one thing that we need to understand, and it comes back to this point we made about communicating what's happening in education. And we can do this in different ways. And I think we should all, as a teacher, try and do that on all the different platforms. And that's why I love social media and all the different platforms on social media. But you need something of substance, something that's like bulk content that you can put out in the world. And you're not going to write your book in one sitting. You're not going to write a book over a weekend, because you need to start thinking about what is the content, what am I going to write about. So
Yeah.
how would you coach a teacher about like what would actually be in the book?
So a great way to start is with a mind map, and I think teachers would really grasp this very well because teachers are so familiar with that. So that same little spider diagram you encourage learners to do when they're doing an essay or when they have to write a piece of work, that's exactly the same way you would start. So you would start with the common theme in the middle, and then you would ask yourself all of the possible topics you could use or you could discuss around that theme. And you just get your spider diagram going, going, going. And then after that, you would then break down each topic and say, okay, so within this topic, what can I talk about? Is there one or two specific driving questions I could answer? Or is there a specific story that I would like to tell? And if it is a story, what is going to be the outcome? What is the lesson of the story? So really just starting with a mind map. It might look extremely crazy and busy at the beginning, but I promise you that is all you need to get started. Once you've got your mind map, that becomes your guide that helps you write the content of your book. And so on the days when you're feeling like you've got writer's block, you're simply going to go to one of the chapters that you know you don't need a lot of creativity or a lot of inspiration to write, because it might be a factual chapter. But then on the days where you feel like, oh, today I feel like I've got this creativity, my creative juices are flowing, that day you're going to write the creative chapter that needs a lot of imagery and storytelling. But your guide is always going to be what helps you get it done. And so when somebody approaches me and says that they're thinking of writing a book or they'd love to write a book, I obviously coach them through that process. We get clarity on what their book idea is. And then I give them an assignment to complete their mind map within 48 hours. Because if you can do it within 48 hours, I promise you, you'll have your book done within 3 to 6 months. Because your outline and that mind map is really going to be what guides you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I always say teachers should keep a journal. Just
Yeah.
after every single day, just jot down a few points of something that happened in your day, because it might seem totally frivolous to you at the moment and inconsequential in the moment. But if you keep a journal of what's happening in your classroom, maybe even just like during exam time, all the funny answers you get, that alone is a book on its own. But
It is.
keeping track of these things is extremely important, because once you write a book and you need examples or you need something to maybe give more body to the story you're telling, using your own anecdotes is so important, because it happened to nobody else in the world. And you can then go back into your journal, you can go back and look at these stories and then capture them, because 20 years from now, or maybe even a year from now, you're not going to remember the details of the incident. And that's what makes story is when you delve into the details of the story.
That's so good. And I think these days technology makes it so much easier to keep track of those moments that you like to use later on. I mean, you could simply be making notes on your phone at the end of each day. You could just have notes that you jot down. You could literally record voice notes and you just play them back later on when you need to write. So there's a lot of tools at your disposal that can make it easier for you to get it done. I definitely think we just need to explore them.
Yeah, if I can give a quick tip, I love making voice notes. I mean, when we communicate on WhatsApp, I love voice notes. It's just so much quicker. But you can actually upload those voice notes onto Google Drive. You can play it in Google Docs, and Google Docs has got a transcription. I think it's a voice to text function, and it types out what you're saying. I mean, that just makes your life so much easier. So if I can give a tip on anybody that wants to document their stories, that's one way of doing it.
That's a great way of doing it. Just be careful. Google doesn't always understand our accent. So please have it edited afterwards. But that's a great one. That's really a great one, Francois.
So now let's say you've now written the book. What's your next step? You've got the story, but now you need to get it out there.
All right. So the first thing is you've done your mind map, and you've now then gone on to write your first draft of your manuscript. And the rule with the first draft is don't edit. So simply write. Because if you edit, you're going to question yourself and you're going to feel like, oh, it's not working. So just write. And once you've said everything you've needed to say, you will then go back, read it, and possibly make a couple of changes, and then get it onto an editor. Very important that you get it to a professional editor, somebody who can look at the structure, look at the flow, as well as obviously cleaning up your manuscript and just checking for grammar and typos and spelling and all of that. But an editor will really get your manuscript from good to great. And then the next step is to then publish. And so you obviously want to have a great cover design. You want to have it laid out and formatted correctly, and then decide, do you want to publish online and just market it as an ebook, or would you like to have hard copies? And then really getting a great strategy. And that's the important part, is you need to develop a strategy around how you're going to get your book to your ideal reader. And sometimes your ideal reader is not necessarily your customer. And so it's very important to go through an exercise where you determine, who are my readers, but who are my customers. And so, for instance, although my book is a book that is aimed at teachers, a lot of times when I show up at a school, teachers always say, payday is only in 3-4 weeks. You know what I'm saying? And so I understand that my customers are not always the teachers. Although they are my target audience, my customer is the principal or the SGB who might need to pre-order my book and give it to all of the teachers as a gift. And so that's some of the work that goes on behind the scenes of how you structure and engineer your book as a product.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to write a book with the idea of to become a millionaire, I think you're doing it with the wrong reason in mind. The money will come if it's something worthwhile. The money will come, but just the mere fact of you spreading the word about the topic that you've chosen, and having 10 people read your book is already a lot more, most likely, than the amount of people who wrote my PhD or who read my PhD thesis. I can promise you, there's probably 5 people in this world that read a PhD thesis of mine, and it was the 3 people who assessed it: myself, the language editor, and probably my 2 supervisors, and that's it. The job I have is communicating the results and the findings from a PhD thesis. When you write a popular book, it's about the message you want to portray, and not about making money. Do you agree with that?
I do agree, but I do also believe that there's a way to find a balance of bringing the 2 worlds together, so that your book is profitable as well. I really, it's one of the things I'm so passionate about. And so every author I work with, we dive deep into getting you to be able to profit from your book. But I agree with you that the number one reason why you should write a book and desire to write a book is for the legacy. There's nothing sadder for me than and hear all of the tributes that are going out for somebody who's just passed away, and people talk about how great this person was and how much impact this person had, and that's the end of it. So often I sit in that audience and I sit in that congregation and I think, wow, imagine if this person had a book, because a book never dies. So a book outlives you. I always say that the last place this book will end up is probably going to be in a library, at an orphanage, or at a school where it was donated, because people don't throw books away. And so here's an opportunity for something that I've done, hard work that I've done once, but it's able to live on years after I've left the earth. And so that's really the number one reason why I encourage people to write a book, is for the legacy that you leave behind after you've gone.
I mean, how cool would it be that at your funeral, people give out your book instead of those small, thin pamphlets with like maybe one text verse and a few songs and a photo of you? I mean,
my wife knows.
Yeah, tell me.
My wife knows when I die, there must be a book table in the back of the room so that people can buy my book at my funeral, and they can go home and she can use the money for whatever else she needs to settle after I'm gone. But yeah,
have a cook sister and a book.
Exactly. Cook Sister is free, but the book is on sale for a special price today.
Just look at this hustler, this entrepreneur, just making a little sale even after he's dead. That's amazing. Oh, Darren, that's awesome. But now I think there's never been a better time in human civilization to write a book, because it's so democratized. You don't need a publisher to come to you first and saying, we want you to write a book, and you can just start writing your book immediately.
That's right. It's so easy to, with self-publishing now, everybody gets the opportunity. It's leveled the playing field, and we all have access to the same 52 billion people that are in the world. You know, the publishing industry, and particularly the self-publishing industry right now, is worth 30 billion rand per annum. You know, people are literally buying books on the internet every single minute or every single second. And so, out of all of the billions of people in the world, I can assure you there's a couple of hundred people who would love to read your story, love to read your experiences, and who would benefit from something that you've got to offer the world.
Excellent, Darren. I'm seeing we're running out of time, so I need to move on to the next segment of our show. But before we get there, everybody that's live with us on the Crowdcast platform, you please vote in our poll at the bottom so we know what to do in our designer lesson challenge a bit later on. I'm going to ask Darren a few personal questions now, but before we do that, if you've got any other questions you'd like to ask, pop it in the Ask a Question button, or then just go and vote in our polls. It's great to see everybody interacting with us. And then, of course, if you'd like to be part of the show like this, make sure that you send me a WhatsApp, +27 63 681 6410, so that I can invite you to be part of our shows here on Crowdcast. I want to see what this one question is we've got. I say, V saying, hey, Darren, thank you for sharing with us. I've been playing around with writing for years, but I've never completed anything because the publishing part of it all scares me. What is your advice on this portion of writing, and where does one even begin?
So if I haven't answered your question in the first part where I spoke about starting with the mind map, I think the best advice I would give is to just have your manuscript done. Because trust me, the publishing process sounds and feels overwhelming, but it actually isn't. And I would much rather have a manuscript that is done and ready to go, so that when the right person that can help me shows up, or when the money shows up, I'm ready. But so many people don't get started. And so for me, if you have the desire, your first step and your first point is to get to the point where you get your manuscript done. Get it done. You know, when I wrote and published my book, I had no money. That whole year, I had not invoiced a single client. In fact, my discussion with my wife at the beginning of that year was, if nothing changes in my business, I'm going to go back and find a job. And so I had the idea to write a book, and that's why at the beginning of the show, I said that I had to ask her for permission to write a book for 6 months. But I worked and I wrote that book. And when I wrote my last chapter, I got my first call for that year from a client who said to me, Darren, you did some work with us 2 years ago. Please, can you come in and work with our team again? We've got this budget. It's a small budget, but we're hoping you'll do it for so much. And it was just what I needed to publish my book and to do my first print run. And we've never looked back. And so I really believe that the help you need, the money you need, all of that will show up when you've done the work that you've needed to do. And so your first target is really getting to the point where you've done and you've written your manuscript.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of insecurity. People think, like authors like Hemingway was this amazing person, Shakespeare. I mean, you need to be on that level before you can write a book, and that's not the case. We should let go of these insecurities of ours. You've got a unique story to tell. People need to hear it, so go and start writing that book.
That's right. I agree, 100%.
Thank you for that question, V. But now, Darren, please tell us, this segment of the show was supposed to be like a quick fire segment, and every single time I have guests, we keep on chatting about it. So I've lost the idea of making it quick fire. So I'm just adding this question in now. Darren, tell us, what is your superpower?
My superpower is the ability to ignite dreams in other people. I think after a couple of minutes with me, people often feel inspired, but more than that, they feel inspired to take action. And I would love to think that is my superpower.
I like that, because it's not like starting a dream for somebody. I love this fact of igniting the dream, because the dream is there. If we just look at If you look like 2 weeks ago when Elon Musk and his team ignited their rocket, everything was already there. The rocket was built, the fuel was there, the structures were in place. Sometimes you just need somebody to ignite you into action. Just like have that get that movement going. So
Yeah.
I like the fact that you say that's your superpower.
Can I quickly share another quote I came across this week? And it says, the cure for broken dreams, because some of us, our dreams have been broken or we've forgotten about those dreams, but the cure for broken dreams is to dream again. How beautiful is that?
Yeah.
And so even if you've let go of that dream, you can simply decide to dream again, go deeper, and your dream is resurrected.
Yeah. Or even if you have a new dream, you don't need to have the same dream over and over again. If it was broken, have a new dream. If your plans in the past have failed, there are new plans. There's never been a time like now. I mean, the coronavirus and lockdown has shaken our foundations to the core. And now it's time to reevaluate and reassess what your plan and what your dreams are. So I absolutely agree with that. Darren, tell us about one of your super teachers, a teacher that really made an impact on your life. We'd like to hear their story.
Okay, so I've already mentioned my grade 2 teacher, so let me tell you another one. Grade 9, Miss Sutherland. So Miss Sutherland was our English teacher, and at the beginning of the year, she decided that she was a little bit tired of the English marks being so bad, and so she negotiated with us and she said, this year, it's going to be compulsory for every one of you to hand in a journal every Friday. So a journal was, those little A5 hardcover books? She gave each one of us one of those, and she said, you can write whatever you like in your journal as long as you hand it in every Friday, and I'll keep track and give you 10% towards your term mark. And obviously we were like, yes, mahala, for free, no problem. And so my first journal entry was, dear journal, had a nice week, shop. And I handed it in. But what was so amazing was what she did. She would spend her whole weekend writing back to every one of us who had handed in a journal. And so she would write back something like, dear Darren, glad to hear you had a good week. Keep smiling, sharp. And so as time went on, we started to trust this journal. And so one of my journal entries in the middle of that year went like this. It said, dear journal, it's been another tough week at home. It's been 3 years now that my dad hasn't been working, and I can see that it's putting some pressure on my mom. The other day, she sent us with a letter to a neighbor to ask for some food, and I could see in her eyes how embarrassed she was. And my teacher wrote back and she says, I'm so sorry to hear that it's so tough right now. I'm sure your parents are doing their best. Just hang in there. You can ease the pressure off them by behaving and doing your best at school. I'm praying for you. And literally, that action, and by doing that, she just did a little bit more than the teacher next door. She just did a little bit more than somebody else. She just took the time to care. And as a result of those little interactions with a little A5 booklet, I wanted to be a better person. One of the journal entries was, dear journal, I think I'm in love. I think I want to marry so-and-so. And she wrote back and she says to me, that's a lovely feeling, but there's plenty of time for that later. Rather focus on being friends and try to be a man that a woman would be proud to call her husband one day. And so, after I got married, I found my journal and I showed it to Arlene and I said, look at the life lessons that I learned in a little A5 booklet. She didn't have to call me in and say, come here, young man, let me tell you about the birds and the bees and here's a free condom. She didn't have to do any of that. A little sentence in an A5 book made me want to be a better person.
That's amazing. You spoke about this defining moments, and I think that's definitely something. This teacher just took. I mean, just look at the inspiration that came from writing a journal into you actually becoming an author and now assisting other people in writing. I mean, just that golden thread running through on writing. So that love of writing of yours could have come from that defining moment of this teacher giving you an assignment like writing a journal. But then actually just the teacher taking the time and investing it probably took her 5 minutes to write a little note to you like this, if it was that much. And here you
Yeah.
are, I'm not going to say how many years later, but still you remember that, and that made an impact in your life. So thank you for sharing that story. And I really encourage everybody to tell the stories of their super teachers, because that's
Yeah.
how we get to know the positives of education, and we uplift the
Mm.
lives of teachers. Right, Darren, are you ready to jump into our Design a Lesson challenge?
I am freaking out. I'm so scared, but let's do this.
Okay, cool stuff. Before we do that, last chance for somebody to vote in the poll for the subjects that we need to incorporate, as well as the phase of schooling that we need to look at. So last chance to vote. So please go and vote there. Darren, before we do that, please tell us, where can people reach you? Where would you like people to make contact with you?
Sure. So on social media, all of my social media handles is at Darren August. Just spell it correctly, Darren, August like the month. That's on Facebook, on Instagram as well. Otherwise, you can make contact with me. You can send me an email to darren@darrenaugust.com. That's my personal email address if you'd like to connect with me, or otherwise via my website, which is darrenaugust.com as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Darren. I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Can I throw this one in? So
Yeah.
please go and connect with me on my Facebook page called A Teacher Changed My Life. That's a very important one, because on that page, we actually encourage people to share the stories of teachers that are making an impact and celebrate the teaching profession. So even if you don't follow me, even if there's nothing else you do, please connect with me on that page. It's called A Teacher Changed My Life. That's what it looks like. And I would love for you to do that, because that helps me really just build this movement of elevating the teaching profession.
Excellent. So A Teacher Changed My Life on Facebook. Make sure that you go and follow that page. If that's the only thing you do, that would be great. I'm definitely going to join there. If I'm not joined yet, I'm definitely going to jump in there. Thank you for that, Darren. Right. So our subjects that we need to incorporate. Now, I'm going to throw in a little veto here, because I also know Darren said that if he were to be a teacher, he would have loved to be a life orientation teacher. So we are going to incorporate the content of life orientation and natural science. Those are the two subjects that we are going to include, and we're going to target it to the intermediate phase. So that is grade 4 to grade 6. Righty-o.
Wow.
So now, please don't leave me and Darren alone on the Design a Lesson challenge. If you are in the live studio audience, please also jump in with your ideas. Now, I think we should approach designing this lesson basically in the same way that you're approaching the writing of a book. We've got two subjects, life orientation and natural science. And the first thing we need to try and do is find a connection point between the two subjects. Darren, any ideas?
Okay. Let me think. So natural science covers what? What does that cover? That's
So the
like
natural science curriculum for grade 4 to grade 6, it's actually called Natural Science and Technology. So
okay.
we're looking at biology. It covers biology. It covers chemistry, physics, and astronomy, geology. Those type of subjects.
Yeah.
We have in natural science.
Okay. So let's go. This is so difficult.
I know it's not easy being a teacher. It's so important to know this, that just coming up with a lesson is extremely difficult. So
I would just download a lesson plan from zibuza.net. That's what I would do.
let's see what the other teachers have done. And this is another important message, is that your classroom is unique. So we've got grade 4 to grade 6. So we're looking at the age gap of 10 to 12. That's the type of child that the age range of the child that we're working with. And your classroom is unique. So having a lesson plan from another institution or from another teacher helps with you thinking of ideas, but you know what it is that your children would like. So V says recycling materials to make your life better. So recycling, that's an excellent topic, and it really links back into life orientation as well as natural sciences. And she says we cover the properties of materials in grade 5.
Okay, so then we could probably go something like finding So then would we say something like, okay, let's go with plastic, and what could you use plastic and recycle plastic to make your life better? So that would be the connection point. Am I right there, V?
100% correct. We've got your personal life, you've got your own
Yeah.
livelihood or your own household, and plastic from household would be one of the materials you would cover in the natural sciences curriculum.
Okay.
Definitely. So I like this fact of recycling. So if you're looking at the grade 4 to grade 6 child, what type of activity can we do with the children?
So I would say we could maybe do, what if they created flowers? Those little plastic flowers.
Yeah.
So taking paper plastic bags and using them to make a little flower for Mother's Day or for Mom's birthday. That could possibly work. Or I've recently seen people building bricks, like using plastic to recycle and create material that you can actually use as bricks to build something. So there's an option.
Okay, so that's absolutely amazing. So one thing you've mentioned is bringing in the calendar events, something like Mother's Day. We are currently in
Yeah.
June. This coming Sunday is Father's Day. So there would be something like, let's reuse the materials in our home and see how we can creatively adjust it or change it to become something aesthetic or functional that your father can use. So now we're linking in the curriculum from life orientation, your household and family living, as well as natural sciences, recycling, but also technology, because technology wants us to create structures and solve problems. And immediately, we're also doing creative arts because we are creating something from the materials that we currently have.
I like one of the comments they're saying possibly do reuse plastic in a vegetable garden, a vertical garden with bottles. That sounds absolutely amazing. I like that.
And I see what V says as well. They can integrate math by selling the veggies, supply and demand, cost of production. How are we selling it? So now we're bringing in the EMS curriculum. We're making entrepreneurs out of our learners. Darren, can you see how amazing it is to start incorporating and interacting different subjects with each other instead of just focusing on, here is my curriculum, today I'm reading from the text.
That's amazing. It's starting to feel like even I would be able to do it now.
Oh, that's, you see, and I think that's why I love incorporating this challenge in every single episode, so we can show people it's not so daunting coming up with new creative ideas for your lessons. Teaching doesn't have to be boring. Kids in your class don't have to freak out because the work that they're doing is uninteresting, because that's where a lot of our discipline issues come from. If the children aren't interested, if they don't see the relevance of what they're doing, then the discipline starts lacking, and we've got challenges.
Very, very good. I like that. That was so creative. That was amazing.
I like the fact that we can start our Wednesday morning with something creative like this and get the creative juices flowing. Darren, I want to thank you very much for taking the time coming onto the show and sharing your wisdom with our teachers. And I'm dead sure that our teachers definitely found a lot of value, because I knew I got a lot of value from our interaction this morning.
Francois, thank you so much. This was such an amazing opportunity. And really, like I said, I've been following your work for years. And I think I want to just salute you for not being quiet, for not just staying in your comfort zone and sticking to what it is that you know, but you've really stepped out and you've really you've taken the bull by the horns, and you've run with this idea of elevating the profession, and that's really what resonates so much with me and why I really esteem you so highly. So I want to just thank you so much for doing what you do and for celebrating the teaching profession. And again, thank you for having me on your show today.
I appreciate those kind words, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of work that the two of us are going to still be doing together in the future. Thank you for that, Darren. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for spending the time with us this morning. If you like what we do here, please like and subscribe on all the different platforms. You can access the Super Teachers Unite show on podcasts, on YouTube, on Facebook. We are everywhere. Please make sure that you like and subscribe, because the whole mission is to unite every single teacher under one banner so that we can make a positive difference in each and every classroom. Until next time, my name is Francois Nordia, and with me, I've got Darren August, and we are Super Teachers.